We are so excited about our newest Halloween block of the month that before we even take it to the quilter, I'm like, wait, we have to show our customers. We've actually never displayed a quilt where it was just the quilt top. Haven't even gone to the quilter yet, but I was so excited with how this turned out. I had to show it right now. This is called Merrie Halloween, designed by Buttermilk Basin years ago. And we offered it in different fabrics again years ago, and that sold out. And I've just been waiting and hoping the perfect collection would be designed, and it was by Stacy, a popular Moda designer, amazing person. This is called Home Sweet Haunt. What a cool name that is. You're seeing the quilt here, that vintage styling. I love how this looks like a newspaper print, and it's so fun to read the wording in here. It's so cool. And for some of the fabrics, I use Moda Grunge, so you're getting amazing, beautiful Moda fabrics, all screen printed cottons. We all love our Moda fabric. And just this is your backing option. This is a no-brainer, right? The fun expressions here. Let me just show you more of the fabric. The Ghostly Gazette. This is just incredible fabric. No longer available from Moda, but of course, so this makes it even extra special. So this is a 9-month block of the month program, again designed by Buttermilk Basin. Stacy West is just a design genius. I'm going to say that her designs are some of my absolute favorite. Prefused and laser cut applique shapes, including all of the shapes that are pure white. There's way more going on than it might seem because these glow in the dark. Just turn off the lights and hear the little ones giggle as the ghosts come to life, glowing all night long. And then, of course, we were going to keep progressing through a period of 9 months. In your 9th month, you'll not only be getting this fabric here, but also your outer border and your binding. The backing on this one is an option, and we cannot get more of this. So if you know you have to have this fabric, and who would not pick that, be sure to choose that option. The prefuse and laser cut shapes have the heat and bond light. So once we use our layout diagrams in combination with our light box and the Appliqué mat to pre-assemble those and bring them onto the background as completed units. This is the thread set that we use to stitch everything down, because remember, heat and bond light's just temporary, just long enough to get assembled and head us to the sewing machine where we can stitch that down permanently, because you're going to want to be displaying this year over year over year, and you're going to get so many compliments and look forward to displaying this every single year. The other things that will be included, besides all the exact fabrics that we so carefully selected for this, is the embroidery as well as the buttons. Stacy loves to add stitching details, the whiskers, the cobwebs, and then we also added some buttons, so you can look forward to those being included in your program as well. Because we've already done this before, here's the great news. At the end of this introduction, if you're like, I want to see that process she just talked about with the shapes and the layout diagrams, the light box, the applique, I want to see that. I'm not familiar. You'll be able to watch that at the end of this introduction. If you say, well, I know how to do that, but I'm not familiar with these stitches, I cover every one of those stitches in that same tutorial. Again, that'll be at the end of this introduction. The rulers are kind of just standard rulers here, but let me call your attention to a few different types of needles that you might want to consider if you don't already have those. This is the Schmetz Super Nonstick Needle, a size 80 needle, specifically engineered for prefuse and laser cut stitching. It has an engineered needle so that it's not gumming up, and just the action and frequency of the stitch helps resist a gumming up of the needle. So we have found that to be a great needle anytime you're doing prefuse and laser cut applique. The reason you're seeing both packages of the Richard Hemming size 4 and size 10 needles is because the size 4 needle is actually larger than the size 10. Needles are kind of the opposite. as the way thread functions as far as sizing goes. For the hand embroidery stitching, I use this size 4 needle, but for our little button embellishments, the size 4 does not go through the holes of those buttons. And for that reason, we have the size 10. It's so tiny. It's like a straw needle. So that's the only reason. These are not identical. They are definitely different sizes. And some marking tools are going to be important for you as well. At times you're marking with a darker marking, for example here, but as you go across this kind of black, kind of charcoal, you might want a lighter colored marking so you can see what you're doing. And that's why there's both a white and a black marking on the table. But you heard me say it before, this collection is probably the cutest Halloween collection I've seen in a very long time. And we all know that Moda prints their collections one time. So if you need to have this hanging in your home, and who wouldn't for Halloween, put a smile on everybody's face, we would love to have you join us for this block of the month exclusively from Shabby Fabrics. Spots are limited, so go to shabbyfabrics.com, and while you're there, be sure to get the beautiful backing option, and I recommend this incredible matching thread set as well to complete the look and any notions you might need. Hi, it's Jen from Shabby Fabrics. Welcome to the Merrie Halloween supplemental videos. You did a good job getting your spot. This has been a very popular block of the month, again designed by Buttermilk Basin, Stacy West, one of my favorite designers. She is just next level designer, so amazing. So I have two things for you today, which will be used throughout your series as we just really create this amazing vintage Merrie Halloween. I think you're going to be excited to bring this out every single year. I also think you're going to get a lot of compliments from people visiting who are looking at the quilt because there's so much to see. Stacy's not only loves all of the beautiful design, but she does a lot of embroidery. So with that in mind, the first part we'll be talking about applique, what tools we use to be able to pre-assemble things, bring them onto the background. You heard me talk about that before. We're going to walk through that process. And then let's talk about that hand embroidery business. We'll unpack that as well. So we'll be here for a while, hopefully not too long, enough that you understand the process. You can pick up any things that you might need if you maybe don't have those things yet. And then any concerns you've had about hand embroidery will be no longer. So that's the goal here. So when you get your block kit, and this will be the same for each month you receive that, you're going to be getting a layout diagram. This is a very important piece needed to be able to pre-assemble the shapes and then bring them onto the background. I recommend leaving your background a little bit bigger. It's always bigger in your kit than it needs to be. You can use your 12.5 inch creative grid ruler or just any ruler if you wanted to bring those to the 12.5 inch. They end up getting sewn in and of course finish at 12. But the best part about leaving them oversized is it allows you to applique everything down, stitch everything down with the thread set. There may or may not be thread sets available if you didn't grab that. If there are, I'd recommend getting that as soon as possible because there's not many left if there's any at all. Stitching everything down and then squaring that up to 12.5. We all know that when we do, the more stitching we do on an applique project, the more it kind of draws that up. I've had that happen many times where I have cut my background almost a little, I would say exactly at that size. By the time I added all the threads, all the machine applique, all the hand embroidery, it just drew that thing up where it was maybe short by about 1/8 of an inch. And I just kind of had to compensate for that all along the journey of making that quilt. Just something I've learned. So I would definitely leave my background bigger, do all that, and then trim it up. Let's look at the layout diagram, just in case this is your first time joining us for a Block of the Month program. We take the time to create these for you so that we can do the process I'm talking about. So let's unpack that real quick. It might be easier actually if I turn the light off for you to see it before we start using the light box with it turned on. The numbers are telling you which shape goes down first. Of course, 1 would go down first, followed by piece 2, because that's the furthest behind, right? You can see that that H is sitting behind the shoe, so that is going to go down first, followed by piece 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on and so forth. Now, I can see that this whole unit here, which is what we'll put together today, I don't need to really involve this piece for now. We'll focus on this, and that's what we'll be putting together. We'll also put that together, and we'll just kind of put that down onto our background. But these dash lines mean something for you as well. And it's really kind of just a visual aid so that you understand the dashed line means that piece lies behind. So let me give you an example. This is the boot, right? Right here. This is just letting you know, see how that part's coming right down to that dash line? That's just letting you know that that will tuck behind the piece that's going to lie on top. I find that very helpful when I'm trying to understand the sequencing, and seeing that juxtaposition, very helpful. All right, you get the idea. So as I said, the letter H is first, followed by the spider. That's a no-brainer. We're going to talk about this, which has way more pieces going on. So as we look at this, one of the first things I want to encourage you about is there's a lot of small shapes. In fact, when we were getting ready for this video, when I was trying to lay everything out, as you can see, I've kind of laid that out ahead of time, I was missing a piece. One of the things I want to encourage you to, don't throw out the trash. Don't get rid of any of that fabric that you get in your kit until you're sure you have every single piece. There's some small ones. The nose is the one that we had missed. And so I'm like, I think I'm missing a nose for our kitty. And sure enough, Karina found that for us. So that's a great example of it. We assume we got everything out of there and we ended up missing a piece. So as we examine this, in this section, we'll disregard the letter H and the spider for now. The lowest number, of course, is number 3. I like to lay out my pieces ahead of time so I understand the orientation of what's going to go down, and I make sure I have everything. I would also recommend grab your phone, take a picture of this, because as we bring our Applifuse mat, whatever applique pressing sheet you have, we start to obscure our vision. We need these mats to do the magic process that's about to come, but it also starts to obscure our vision. So that's why it's nice to have, what am I doing, laid out ahead of time, so you definitely put them in the right position, confirm you have everything, and take that photo. We have 2 sizes of Applifuse mats here. I like using the size for the project that I'm putting together. In this instance, since I'll be working with the cat initially, just this kind of the hat and the boot, I don't really need to use my larger Applifuse mat. I always use the mat for the size I'm working on. So what we will do is open up our Applifuse mat. These they have a mind of their own, by the way. When I take this kind of keeper off, you'll see that this will just unroll by itself. Well, for years, I just kind of flopped them over, and then they still they were messy in my sewing room. These are the slap and wrap peels from the Gypsy Quilter. So people have been asking about these. If you use stabilizer, anything that doesn't just want to stay contained by itself, that's circular, great option for you. All right, so the sequence is, and I have a wafer 2 light box. The sequence is the wafer 2 light box, layout diagram, and I'm going to be using my Applifuse mat, the smaller one, and your iron is on a medium heat. Whenever we're doing patchwork, we know that our iron is absolutely on maximum. Not now. We want to bring that back to a medium heat. So you always want to just keep that in your mind. All right, let's turn that light box on. The Applifuse mat has a tackiness to it. I love that. So when you have your very first pieces going down, don't be afraid to give them a nice press, because the coolest part about that is this isn't going anywhere. I love the tackiness of these mats, and I have been told that if they lose their tackiness over time, run them through a cycle in your dishwasher and they'll be tacky again. So this is really a lovely thing, right? That tackiness helps because I don't want to have to bump this and now pieces go flying. So anything that's in direct contact with the Applifuse mat won't move as long as you give it a nice push. So we can see we're going 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Here, the face, the 8, the 9, and we'll build this site picture. So let's go ahead and just do that one by one, because I want you to see this merge together and really the magic of this product. This never gets old for me, just to show you the amazing technology. Because back in the day, as they say, right? Back in the day, before I had a layout diagram, before all this existed, I had my background and I was just visually looking at a photo, guessing where things went and bringing things to the background one by one. And it was almost a little stressful, right? And sometimes it didn't come out quite right, but I'd already ironed it down. It was too late. You're kind of living with what you have and somewhat disappointed. So while these products are an investment, they are absolutely a worthwhile investment you will use every single time. I'll just keep building our site picture. Wow, look at that. Isn't that amazing? Now watch the magic here. By the way, I built a lot of this. Sometimes if there's too many moving parts, you can just build this and then go back and add that and go back and add that. Do as much as you want to feel comfortable before you're like, oh, there's too many moving parts. I need to start ironing something down. I understand that. I've been doing this for a while, so I'm very comfortable with that. But if you wanted to just start here and iron that down, fine, do that. You will just go back and start adding parts. Okay, I'm going to prop that up because we can't iron, I should say, on our light box. We have to iron on a wool pressing mat, whether that's maybe an ironing board, whatever that is. Hold this in position 5 to 6 seconds. With no lateral action. That's very, very important, of course, because it's going to disturb our position of our pieces. And that boot. What a designer Stacy is. And you know, you're going to fall in love with this laser cut, especially if this is your first program and you've been like me, tracing that. I used to buy Heat and Bond Light when I go into Joann's and I buy the whole bolt. And there was so many things that I wanted to do that were applique, all the tracing, all the cutting. And that was never as precise as I wanted. I wanted to just jump into the fun, right? That time was limited. The kids were little. So there were so many projects that I didn't get to because I was spending so much time tracing and cutting. So now that that is merged, that is now one unit. That's absolutely incredible. So we'll just let that cool down for just a moment. And of course we have our letter H, right? And our ladybug, our spider. And yes, that spider is very difficult to see. So that was not one I wanted to even iron down with you because you probably can't even see that from the overhead. But as we look at our quilt here, you can see that as we put her legs on and we put her eyes on, she appears. So there's not a whole lot to see because it's black on black, but you get the idea. So let's talk about bringing that background out and we'll start appliquing things down. Notice the bat. Why did I not put the bat down? Because it's not layered. I could have ironed that to my fusible Appli-Fuse mat, but why, right? The whole point of the Appli-Fuse mat is the merging of layers that overlap. If you have pieces that are kind of out by themselves, like the bat, that doesn't need to be added until at the very end, and we're getting very close to that moment. So we have our fabric here, and as we turn our light box on once again, and in the studio, the lights from above are very bright. At home where you are, you can bring the lights down low, and the illumination underneath is just accentuated, and you will absolutely see where this goes. I can see it just barely, but enough that I can see where that goes. So I can see that is where it should go. Now watch the magic here. And now, amazing. All those pieces are one. Look at that. Incredible. Just absolutely incredible. So now I can see, there's the boot right there. There's the candy. Amazing. And we have our letter H. Remember, with the H is behind, so I'm just going to lift that up. And there's my H. There it is. There's the top. Oh, look at that. So cool. And we'll put our spider down that I keep wanting to call Ladybug. Now, we bring this onto the background. And again, ironing this down, leaving enough time, 4 to 5 seconds in each section, ironing everything down to the background. And that's where our thread set comes into play. Some people like to stitch it down every month. That would probably be me. I don't think I could resist waiting. Other people are like, no, I'm going to wait till all of my blocks are down. Then when I load up my machine with this beautiful copper color, I'm stitching each part of the block, the hat and the candy that uses that color. I just don't think I could wait each month because it's so fun to be able to stitch everything down. And when the next block comes, the process repeats. Okay, we stitch everything down at that point. Oh, so beautiful. So let's look at this quilt. As I said, Stacy's not only an unbelievable designer. I mean, next level. She loves this embroidery. That's what gives it this vintage look. For some people, the hand embroidery is causes them concern. Let's unpack that. I'm going to clean up a bit. We're going to bring the camera around. There's really not that many complicated stitches in here at all. In fact, none of them are complicated. I'm going to unpack that and show you how easy that is. We have French knots for the kitty's eyes. We have the back stitch that is in various places. And we really kind of have what is almost like a feather stitch. I'm going to unpack that for you. We'll get up close. You'll see how easy that is. And you'll be off to doing the hand embroidery on your first block. So for the hand embroidery, one thing that you can do, let's look back at our diagram here. We've got our whiskers for the cat. We have our smile here. You could take this shape using a micron pen, not a friction pen. A micron pen is permanent. To your diagram, try to look through that and draw that, or you're just kind of winging it. Notice it's supposed to be kind of wonky. That's this look, right? That's what kind of makes it uniquely vintage looking. I'm not trying to be super organized with this. So don't worry about perfect lines. It's what makes it look handmade. It is handmade. So I'm just going to look at this and draw this in at this point. Now for the spider web, I could see that being something at this point that I bring to the light box, bring it all the way up, lights in the room down, and draw that on. I think that's harder to achieve and make it look right. Here, you might use a white marking pen to just draw that in. I would do that versus trying to guess where that is. So that's just something to mention about that. Also, there are buttons for the eyes of the cat as well as the boot. That will go on, of course, at the very end after this is even long arm quilted. That way we're never interfering with the needle and potentially running into any problems or breaking needles. So of course I don't have the embellishment on. All right. Because I want to cover the stitches, and what the stitches include will be French knots, backstitch, and basically that fly stitch, I'm just going to draw a line. We'll start with that. We'll do some French knots, and then we're going to do a fly stitch, which is a little bit, I just kind of go for the fly stitch, looking at the design and just going for it. But I'll show you what I mean in just a moment. The embroidery floss that is included in your kit, we just have 2 to 3 strands depending on what's in the pattern and your preference. If you like something very dense, you're going to add 3 strands, maybe 4. So we knot that on the end. I'm using a Richard Hemming size 4 needle. It's just nothing fancy there. For the back stitch, we're going to come up, come down, and the goal is to split the line. That's all we're trying to do, is to come up and split the line, go down and split the line here. We're coming down exactly where we had left off. Backstitch has been around longer than I've been on the earth, so it's a very old stitch, very reliable. It's a classic. You get the idea. Very, very simple. Once you're done, let's say you're here at the very end, you simply turn this over, come up from underneath, keeping in mind I'm not going to the front, I'm staying in the back, and I tie off twice. That's just my habit. It's kind of a little bit of an insurance policy. Easy, easy. Cut your thread. French knots, I'll just do a few here. We come up. I'll try to do it down here so it's easier for you to see that. The embroidery floss goes left if you're right-handed, as I am. The needle's in the front. The more wraps you do around the needle, the bigger the knot will be. If I do 1 and 2, pivot my needle to go back down where I had just come up. Let me try to get my hands out of the way. Notice I've trapped the thread, the floss to my left. Keep a hold of that. Do not let go until you must let go. Right there. That's the knot. If you want a bigger knot, you can simply add more strands of embroidery floss or do more wraps or both. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's say you really want a bigger knot. Generally, that's about as many wraps as I would ever do before I just start bulking up the embroidery floss. It's easier to manage more strands of embroidery floss than to manage more wraps. You can see that makes twice the size. Makes sense. So this fly stitch that Stacy loves, this is one where I'm looking at the project and I'm just kind of going for it. So if I know I want a fly stitch in here, I am absolutely grabbing my image of my block. There is not a fly stitch on this one, but let's pretend there it was. Maybe it's going to be down this, okay? I would simply go for that. Here's what I'm talking about. Come up left and I come right. It's a very vintage looking stitch. Think of this almost as a triangle, okay? Now, as I come over to the side and maybe slightly down, again, think of it as a triangle that almost keeps pivoting a little bit. Now, I'm here, I need to come over here, and I'm going to come just a little bit lower. Think of that triangle. This is one of Stacy's very favorite stitches, I think, because I see it a lot, and it's a really fun one. And you can cover a lot of distance in short order. You can see how far we've already traveled, and we've only put in 4 stitches. So it's a really fun one. Again, here, opposite and maybe just a little bit down. You can tip this left and right depending on how far down you bring that next stitch to the side, just like that. And when you're at the very end, let me do one more. When you're at the very end, and she's usually doing this on top of an applique. She's done that on quite a few letters. Simply hop over on this side to end it. That's it. Keeping in mind there's an applique behind this, you simply turn this over, and you usually have quite a bit that you can kind of hide behind, but you're just going to go very shallow behind, staying behind the applique, and again, just tying off twice. That's it. That's all the stitches that are in this entire block of the month. Easy peasy. So you can see with some very important tools, applique, easy peasy. As far as stitching down your applique, we didn't do anything fancy. We load up our beautiful 50 weight in the top of our machine. You can use really any color you want. You could even use the same color if you wish in the bobbin. Not necessary if your tension's correct. Just a straight stitch all the way around unless you want to get fancy. Maybe do a blanket stitch or something else. Let your personality come out. And as you can see, the embroidery is no problem. We will continue that process all throughout that, the 9 months. And then of course, in that final shipment, we're just sending you that outer border binding and you are on your way. So we're so happy you're in this program. We did this once before, many, many years ago, and so many people have asked for it since. So when this collection came out, I'm like, it's time, it's time. So thank you again to Stacy West and her team at Buttermilk Basin for allowing us to prefuse and laser cut this for you again. We really appreciate their partnership and we appreciate your business. We'll see you soon on another Shabby Fabrics video.